ready to pang your head. Your radio host for Pang Radio, Mike Lucas.
Welcome everybody to Pang Radio. Tonight is August 6th, Sunday, 2017. Welcome to the show tonight. We are live at the IRN Studios North here in northern Wisconsin next to beautiful Lake Superior, and it was a beautiful day out with sun, lake wind, and about 75 degrees. So welcome to the show. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Ken Storch. How you doing, Ken?
Hey, I'm doing great, and we're looking forward to tonight's show.
Oh yeah. Tonight's show is going to be a good one, too. I've had her on a few different times. She's a fellow cheesehead, kind of replanted herself in Bearland, but we'll talk with Mary in just a second. You got any shout-outs, Kenny?
Just a couple. I want to have a shout-out to Lorna Hunter and Rosemary Jessup in England, and George and Patty in Springfield, Missouri. How you doing, guys? Thanks for listening.
Perfect. And I'd like to do a shout out to all our listeners that are checking in on Facebook. I'm starting to see, different countries, and I think it's really neat. And we're seeing a lot of listenership and a lot of followers coming from different places on the planet, because there are many different ways you can listen to Inception Radio Network. You can listen on iHeartRadio, download our podcast, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio. We're pretty much everywhere. We have our own app, and go to the App Store and download Inception Radio Network Mobile, and you can chat right from our app, which is really neat too. A lot of people hang out on their iPads, come in to chat, and ask our guests questions, which is a pretty neat thing. So we're very pumped about that. And don't forget, next week, 9 p.m. Eastern, we will have another installment of the John Ford UFO Nightmare. I think we were trying to get somebody to talk to John, Ken, and I don't know if I've heard anybody has a recording of them or not. I don't know what the status is on that.
I have not heard anything yet either, but yeah, you're right. They were going to try to at least do a interview with him for 15, 20 minutes or whatever, and then we'd be able to play that on the show, but I have not heard. Right.
So we'll see what we can do. We got a week before the show, but the Brain Trust will get together next Sunday, and we'll see where John's at, and I think we've had the show on over 2 years now, but I think we're making strides towards a different lawyer, is the rumor, Ken. So if we can get somebody in there that's actually going to fight for his human rights, I think that would make a hell of a difference.
Yeah, he needs a different legal beagle. That's my opinion. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, our guest tonight, she's been on the show probably 4 or 5 times. She's a fellow cheesehead. She's the former owner of the Sci-Fi Cafe in Burlington, Wisconsin. Probably still hangs out in Burlington quite a bit by the Haunted Woods. Mary Sutherland is a avid researcher, written books on giants and other archaeological finds. But we're gonna dig in tonight, and we have some important issues we got to bring to the forefront. But I'm gonna introduce Mary here and let Mary tell our listeners a little bit about herself. Thank you for coming, Mary.
Oh, thank you for having me back, MJ.
Oh, it's been great. How have you been?
Oh, I've been doing really well, thank you. And yeah, I may be in Bears country, but big butt there. I'm still a cheesehead, and so is my husband. we stay blue. We stay true and blue. Or I should say green and gold.
Green and gold. There you go. I have a rumor last night that our family night had 63,000 people and the Bears had 13,000. So right there, that tells you how your fan base is right there. I don't mean to be mean to our Chicago and Illinois friends, because our other studio is out of Chicago, but we're Packer backers and we love our team. I know that.
Who is Heidi backing?
Heidi's a Packer fan also.
All right,
yeah.
Good girl.
Milwaukee girl, yep.
Well, and we all know that there's only one team, and that's the orange. Go Broncos, right?
See,
there was a still that went through the building.
Yeah. Oh man.
Well, Mary, you want to tell our listeners a little bit about yourself? And I mean, you've written a few books, and tell them a little bit about your research and what you've done. You've came across some pretty awesome finds too in the state of Wisconsin.
Okay, I can do that for you. First of all, let me say that I have 7 books out. I'm working on 2 more books and 1 ebook, and I'm doing my live streaming now. And I'm taking all my old BUFO radio shows and changing them into live stream and putting them on Facebook and YouTube. That's been a big project. And let's see, still doing my tours, out there in Burlington Haunted Woods. The woods is just as strong as they ever were, if not stronger. Let's see, what else do? I do tours of various sacred sites in Illinois and Wisconsin. Still doing my research on the underwater pyramids of Rock Lake. Let's see, what else do I do?
You do a lot.
I must be doing something else. I'm just, I just can't remember right now. But we've been, as most people know, that 5 of my books is a series. It's called In Search of Ancient Man. And the first book I put out was The Red-Haired Giants. That really took off well. Very, very popular book. And it's based on the red-haired giants of North America. And then the other books are still they're still focusing around the giants and lost races and how religion came to be and, and our various different traditions around the world and how we came to be the people that we are today based off the traditions of ancient man. Oh, and I'm also a cryptid researcher, so I'm out there in the woods hunting down Bigfoot a lot, as well as Dogman.
Mm-hmm.
I've had encounters with Bigfoot, but I do not want to have an encounter with a Dogman. But yeah. I am curious about them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mary, my co-host Ken actually stood face to face with the Bigfoot. How many feet away were you away from him, Ken?
We measured. It was from where the footprint was to where I was standing was just shy of 12 feet.
Oh.
I think the closest I've ever gotten was about 20 foot.
Oh, wow.
That's still
was
close.
Close enough, right?
Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, for you too, 12 foot. That had to have been amazing, though.
Oh, it was an all-ship moment, let me tell you. It was, go ahead.
Did they use the one that you had your encounter with, did he use infrasound on you at all?
Did he use what on me?
Infrasound?
I'm not sure what that is.
Could you move? Everything felt kind of normal with you, or?
It was such an accidental. It was such an accidental encounter. I say he, and I want to reiterate. I do not know the gender of this creature. I couldn't tell if it was male or female, but it was an accidental on both parts. He didn't. I say he didn't realize I was there, and I didn't realize he was there until it was, it was a strange encounter in that respect. But to answer your question, yeah.
I think he's got a little...
when the one that I encountered, he used infrasound on me. And for the people that don't know about infrasound, what it is, it's a very low frequency that most people cannot hear. Tigers use it, on their prey. Whales use it, I believe. Squid use it. A bunch of different types of predators do use it. And what it does is when they give out this blast of infrasound, it actually paralyzes you where you can't move.
Well, if it did happen, I was not aware of it. It was eyeball to eyeball, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, he probably didn't because he was more in shock, just as much in shock as you were.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'm sure I had the same look on my face as it had on its face. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Oh, what an amazing experience. Was yours a daytime or nighttime?
It was daytime. It was about 3:30, maybe 4 o'clock in the evening in early April. So,
Wow.
yeah, it was interesting, to say the least.
And Ken, and that is that Pennsylvania, if I'm correct?
Yeah, Western Pennsylvania in Clearfield County, right outside of a small town called Du Bois, Pennsylvania, or Du Bois, depending on how you pronounce it.
I talked to Linda Godfrey on one of the shows, and it could have even been yours, MJ, but we both feel that there's at least 10,000 of them just here in the state of Wisconsin.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean,
if you go out there in the woods and you look around, I mean, it's just like, heck, it's not difficult to find, their structures and footprints and their little dolls that they make up and their little wooden, little stick figures.
Yeah,
so,
I think
they're just all over the place.
I think as long as they have a good cover and a good water source nearby, I think they're pretty much everywhere. I was checking out a place about 20 miles south of Superior too. A gentleman called me, and I was out on the property, found a few different, found some branches in weird formations, but very, very good, source of trout there in a nice little river running through there. And if they have all them resources, I mean, they're gonna be in multiple places. I agree.
Yeah, there's quite a lot there. Maybe at one point in time, maybe there wasn't that many, but their population is growing.
Hey, Mary, you mentioned the Dogman and MJ. I came back from Oklahoma City, gave a little talk actually in Lexington, Oklahoma on Friday. But there has apparently, and I was not aware of this, there's been like 3 sightings in the last couple of months of a dog person or dog man down in that area of Oklahoma.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and Mary, what do you said you didn't want to meet one, and I'm curious as to why.
Well, I just think that that they're more like with the Bigfoot. I see them as more human, and I look at the dogman as animalistic, and I think that I feel that if you give them plenty of birth and they've ate, that you probably would not have any problems with them. But, just like any other wild animal, when they're out on the hunt, they're just going to be seeing you as just another, type of a prey.
Another meal. And I'm glad to hear you say that that you see Bigfoot as more human, because the creature that I encountered in Western Pennsylvania, that was my impression, that I was dealing with more human than ape. That's for sure. Yeah,
they have quite a lot of intelligence, and and it seems I can, with my studies, I've been able to take the Bigfoot all the way back to the days of Gilgamesh, when they called them the Enkidu. And I've been able to take the Dogman all the way back to Nebuchadnezzar during the Tower of Babel. So they've been around quite a long time. The stories of them have been.
Yeah, and most Indian tribes also will have some type of creature in the past, or they all have different names for a Bigfoot, which is, I think, a very neat thing. So they're encountering similar creatures with every type of nation throughout the U.S. in the past, of course. Probably encountering them now. I know near Cloquet, Minnesota, over 30 miles west of us, it's one of the hotter spots I've read in a couple books, but it's been on Monster Quest, and also where they're walking across the road. The guy hit one with a car, ran in the woods, even shot at it, thought he nicked it, but it came up almost right on the porch of the house. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, well, it's like, good luck, with all you listeners out there that actually thinks that you can shoot a Bigfoot and get away with it. Because as a forest ranger once told me, or a guy working for the DNR, that as far as the United States government is concerned, they own all the animals. And whether they have them on an endangered species list or not, they still belong to the government, and if you kill one of them, you're going to be going to jail and paying one heck of a big fine. So I mean, that's why we have hunting seasons. We have to go get permission to hunt bear and hunt cougar and hunt deer and things like that.
Well, and I think it goes a little bit further than that, Mary. If it turns out that there's a lot of human DNA involved, you could be charged with manslaughter.
Well, of course. And there was something that I discovered. I was doing some research on feral children, Feral. And, there has been a lot of them found here in the United States. And these feral children, if they grow up in the wild, like let's say, for example, they were parent, and believe it or not, they did a long time ago. Parents would simply just drop their kids off in the woods and take off like they would a dog or a cat.
Oh, geez.
And, some of the kids survived. And like, for example, if a wolf adopted one of these children, the child would, be brought up in that habitat, that environment. They would learn how to run on all fours. And their bodies, because they're young bodies, how bodies get molded according to, their activity.
Right.
So as they're young growing up, their bones would actually mold to the point where they'd be able to easily run on all fours.
Oh, wow.
And plus that, because of being exposed to the elements, they have found these feral children with full bodies of hair. So, and they, and then of course the children grow up into adults and people see them out there in the woods. They could easily mistake one of these feral people as a small Bigfoot and shoot it, find out it was human.
Or even a dog man type of creature too, I would guess.
Even a dog man.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
But, like during the days of depression, a lot of people could not feed their children. And they would actually, take them out into the woods and drop them off. And then there's just cold-blooded people that would do the same thing. But and then remember the stories of the orphan train that would pick up these kids on the streets of New York City, and then bring these orphans to the Midwest, and then as the history states today, they were given good homes and great parents, right? But actually, what was happening was these people were getting these orphans, so that they could, like slaves, and working these little kids. And when they were no longer useful, they would just kick them out. And then the kids would have to go find a means of taking care of themselves. So during that time, and that would have been still in that Depression era, there was a lot of kids that was dumped out into the woods. Thus became all the feral sightings. There was this woman that came into the Sci-Fi Cafe one time, and it just kind of blew me away, because she told me that Burlington, Wisconsin actually had this great big center in the early 1900s where, an institution, it was like a huge building, 2 floors at least. And that's what they did there, is they took care of feral people. That's how many there was in Burlington at one time. And they said, she was telling me that if they could get them before, 3 years old or something like that, they could probably get them to speak. But after a certain length of time of not using those vocal cords, for language, they would just, you never could get them to speak. They would just answer in howls and grunts and things like that.
Wow.
But yeah, there was a lot of those feral children that were being found, to the point, like I said, they actually had an institution to get them and take care of them. Crazy, huh?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard of that.
There you go.
Wow.
I mean, and how it, so And then the Indians also talk about a lot of their people want to go more of the shaman way, and they leave the village without any provisions or clothing, from what I understand, and they just live a life out in the woods, wild, and to become more part of nature. And of course, those people too would have the long hair. Their body would be covered with hair, to protect them from the elements. And so there's a lot of things out there that look like a Bigfoot, but aren't Bigfoot. And if you're going to shoot one of them, you will definitely go to prison.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's so.
There's many people right now that. There's radio shows out there and television shows that are actually promoting fear, whereas people are wanting to go into the national parks and everything carrying guns. Mm-hmm. And I personally would be more afraid of some person that is full of fear carrying a gun
you bet.
Than I would be in running onto a Bigfoot.
Oh, you bet. Oh, you bet. Yeah. So is Illinois more active down there in the northern part than Wisconsin? I mean,
well, from what Linda Godfrey told me, we're right in the center of Dogman country.
Oh, yeah, that's what I figured.
Do you remember that documentary? I don't know if it was on Sci-Fi or the History Channel, where these young adults had pulled down into this area called Avon Bottoms. Mm-hmm. And they had walked back in there and they'd seen some dogmen, a family of dogmen getting a drink of water.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was there. Linda Godfrey came and we went there, I think it was last year, because she wanted to show me where that was. And anyhow, we found Bigfoot tracks down there.
Oh, wow.
They had come out of the water into the mud and left really nice Bigfoot tracks. So apparently these dogmen and Bigfoot pretty much, I don't know if they like each other
coexist
that much,
somewhat.
but they are coexisting.
Yeah. I know Ken stated that. I think was the creature you spotted picking up crawfish out of the river, Ken? Is that what you thought?
Yeah, standing up on a hilltop and looking down into Narrows Creek, which was actually a river at that time. It appeared. I didn't know long story short. Yeah, he was turning over rocks, eating crawfish, and he did have a small deer over his back that he was carrying when the encounter took place. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, they're omnivorous. I think they eat anything: roots, berries, deer, squirrels, whatever they can get their hands on.
Yeah, kind of like us.
Yeah. Well, I am. I mean, I like crawfish and I like deer, so I'm not that far removed.
Well, the people will say, well, Wisconsin, southern Wisconsin area doesn't have all those big woods, like the northern woods and Washington and that. But what we've got is even better for them because we got all these swamps. Mm-hmm. And you get into those swamps, if they get into those swamps, you're never going to find them because those swamps have bogs. And if you don't know where you're walking, those bogs are like quicksand.
Oh, I think they're very adaptable. I think that they're capable of assimilating into almost any kind of environment. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you, that in the outskirts of your major cities that they're not dumpster diving. I mean, I think that they're very capable of living almost off of anything. Like I said, they're omnivorous. They'll eat anything, anywhere, anytime. And Mary, being in a swamp, that wouldn't be any difficult for them. I don't think see any difficult for them at all.
Because those swamps, I mean, those cattails, they grow 12 foot tall.
Oh yeah.
And so they can get in there, and I mean, they got water, they got, frogs, they got all different types of
ducks,
fish.
Geese. I mean, all kinds of waterfowl, and deer go in and out of those bogs too.
Right?
So
wild rice. I mean, they could make beds in there. I mean, it's to me the perfect place for them. And then, of course, southeastern Wisconsin has a lot of cave systems, too.
Mm-hmm.
So they could be living in the cave systems as well. But going with the dog man, I was talking to this lady. She brought up a really interesting idea that these dog men may be these prehistoric dire wolves, dire, dire wolves. They supposed to became extinct about 10,000 years ago, but we've known lately that a lot of things that, that the DNR or scientists has claimed to be extinct, we've found them still existing. So they could be some sort of a branch off these dire wolves. And because they're starting to, it's like these wild dogs,
right.
These feral dogs and that, they've gotten and raccoons and bear and that, they've gotten used to seeing people. So now, because they're used to seeing people, they've lost that fear. And so they're starting to come into town, these dog men are, and raiding people's garbage and things like that. And then there's another thing I wanted to point out about the dog man. To me, a dog man is like a dog, a canine.
Mm-hmm.
And you hear people saying, oh, well, I was going down the road, I was only going about 20 miles an hour, and this dog man comes running out of this field, and then he starts chasing after me in my car. I pick up speed, and it keeps right along going, with me, and then he'll try to bite the car. And somebody had said, no other animal does that. And it's like, yeah, you've never been out in these farming communities, apparently, because these farmers' dogs, that's the best game that they got going, is chasing after cars and trying to bite their wheels.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Marilyn posted in chat that Bigfoot was seen digging in a dipsy dumpster near Yukon, Oklahoma, near the Lucky Star Casino. And I think they even had a picture of one taken with a cell phone of some kind of bipedal creature digging in a dumpster down in Florida, too, one of the skunk apes or whatever they refer to it as. So I wouldn't see, and as population expands and as cities grow and the suburbs go further and further into I think you're going to see more of that.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, I often wonder if he's dumpster diving at Burger King and then getting high cholesterol, though. Just kidding. I mean,
yeah. Hey, you know what though? What the hell? I mean, if you're hungry, you'll eat anything.
Pretty much.
That's right.
Pretty much.
Eat McDonald's food.
Yeah. Well, let's take a break right now. We'll be right back on Paying Radio with Mary Sutherland. We'll get into some history of Burlington, Wisconsin, and an ongoing issue that we have to bring to the forefront for all you listeners. So hang in there, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Paying Radio. Tonight we have on our guest and author, researcher, Mary Sutherland she's originally a cheesehead, but she's down in Illinois now. We're talking Dogman, werewolves, Bigfoot, and we're going to talk about Burlington, Wisconsin. Mary tromped the grounds of Burlington for quite a few years now, Mary, didn't you?
I probably got close to 2 decades in there. That's a long time. Actually, about 16 years.
Very cool. And you're the former owner of the Sci-Fi Cafe, which I never got to go to. I wish I could have.
Oh, bummer. You would have loved it.
Oh, yeah.
It was, I had created space for people of like minds to be able to go to and tell their stories of UFOs, Bigfoot, their theories on time travel, whatever they wanted to speak about. They could go there, know that they were safe, they were not going to be ridiculed by others. And we used to play sci-fi movies, and we had good food. We had down in the basement a haunted cellar. Oh my God, it was, and then it was very big too. and we had one room that was a movie room with a library, and we would people would just be able to come in, and the library was just set up with metaphysical books, holistic books, UFOs, paranormal, whatever, mystery type books, and people would just come in and sit, on a nice cozy chair and grab a cup of tea or coffee and just kind of chill out.
You used to have
and then we would do haunted tours then on Saturday nights.
Oh wow! And you used to have a nice little conference.
To their schedule.
You used to have a nice, a good conference every fall too, didn't you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, isn't that where I first met you, MJ?
I think we helped you promote it a few times. I didn't make it down. We were trying to get down, but every year we would kind of connect. I think you had it in October normally. Was that correct?
Yeah, we had some pretty famous people show up.
Oh yeah, you did. Oh yeah.
Stanton Friedman and Daryl Sims. Oh gosh. You name it. I think that they were all there at one point in time or another.
So what is the cafe now? Did it turn into some other business?
Nope, it's still sitting there vacant.
Oh, okay. So Burlington also has, another thing I can add to, when I was the state director of MUFON for Wisconsin, that area, that belt line between Madison and Milwaukee, majority of the reports on the database all the time. And I know you guys seeing lights in the sky all the time in Burlington, didn't you?
All the time. I used to call it a galactic airport because we wouldn't just see one type of UFO, but it was all different types. Disc, motherships, light ships, triangles, and I mean close encounters. And we were lucky enough that the sheriff's department was actually quietly, the deputies were sharing stories, of their UFO sightings with us as well. Huh. So, I mean, we've videoed UFOs right over the Sci-Fi Cafe flying.
I've seen them. Yeah.
I think it was 2001 or 2002. I think it was 2001. We had them come in, I bet, for almost 8 months. Every night. They'd usually show up about 9 o'clock at night, stick around until about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then take off. Yeah. And so we got incredible shots. It got to the point, though, that I never thought they were ever going to leave. So after about 5 months of shooting, I just kind of like, oh, well, I know where they're at. And I quit shooting, so... And then after a couple months, they were left, and I thought, well, darn it. If I'd known that, I would have kept shooting. But we've had, one time at one of our UFO conferences, we had the Milwaukee magazine. That's a big magazine, that four-colored magazine. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, they came up to do a story, a Halloween story, on our tour for the conference. And we got up into the woods, and we had one heck of a huge UFO sighting. One came in, and it was just maybe if you took a large tree and then put another large tree on top of that, is about how high up it was. Oh, wow. And there was a portal there. And the UFO came in, hovered right over everybody, and people were so excited. They were praising God and praising the UFOs, and that people were down on their knees praying, and the Milwaukee magazine was there, and they were like standing there in shock and taking pictures and videos. And the guy was not a UFO believer. But after that night, he actually wrote a book on UFOs. Turned him into a believer. And then that one would disappear into this portal or a wormhole. And then another one would come from the horizon real fast, get right over top of us. And then it went over and it went through that wormhole and disappeared. And the reason I know it was a wormhole is because I got two different people that photographed these UFOs, and you can see that wormhole just as pretty as can be.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, amazing.
Wow.
Hey, Mary.
But yeah, we've had, so our conferences actually became, what would you say, intergalactic?
Yes.
Galactic,
Yeah.
galactic conferences.
Yeah.
Even the aliens showed up for my conferences.
Mary, do you think that's the reason why they were coming there, is because of the portal? I mean, that was the, entrance and exit?
Oh, I'm sure that it was because of the portals that we have in Burlington. We've got a bunch of there's one big portal, and it's huge. We call it the rainbow vortex, because it actually extends almost to Milwaukee. It's so huge, but we got portals was inside that vortex, and things are coming in and out of there all the time. And we get pulled into them as well, and taken into different dimensions. And that's what my tours are all about, is I take people up to one of these portals. And, okay, Marilyn, I take people up into those portals and let them experience shifting out of their bodies into these other dimensions. And I had the ability with my camera to actually photograph them in 3D, plus in the dimension that they're in. I'm one of the few people that can do that.
I've seen a lot of photography from the woods too. You've shown me, and I've seen it. Your posts. You've taken some pretty crazy pictures. Showing what's going on.
Yeah, and a lot of people claim that those Bigfoot don't cloak themselves. Well, we've got pictures of them cloaking themselves. So, to me, if you can get it on pitch, because when they cloak themselves, it's kind of like a smoky form that the people can't see, but they show that smoky form shows up in the camera, or, in the picture. A wormhole, you got some people in chat room asking what a wormhole is. Well, wormholes, this is where you this is a nice lead into Burlington. People themselves, we have blood running through our veins. Mother Earth has energy running through her veins, electricity running through her veins. And now with us, we got our little veins, and then we got the big veins, that go into the heart and that. And so does Mother Earth. So what happens is, where you get the little veins, you don't have too much activity going on. But when you got those big veins and they cross over, it's almost like if you took two battery cables that were hooked up to two separate cars, and you take those battery cables and you touch them, and that huge spark, and now magnify that like a billion times over as to the energy of Mother Earth, and those two of her large veins coming together and creating that big flash. And it's constantly going on. And so what that does is it tears, it creates a tear in the fabric of reality as we know it. That's how Stanton Friedman said it to me, so I'm explaining it to you. But there's tears into the reality of, how did I say that? It creates a tear in the reality that we know. And so anyhow, this creates these doorways. All right, and these doorways open up into other dimensions, and the doorways are a form of a wormhole. Now, we can't map them because we can't scientists can't map them because they haven't figured out quite how to penetrate that veil to get in through these wormholes and map out these dimensions. But people can do it etherically. Science just can't do it with nuts and bolts, but it can be done, using your own energy to travel. But so like ET and that has a higher technology than us, so they've been able to map out all these different wormholes and what they lead to. And so what happens is they know that there's this huge portal or wormhole in Burlington, and they, so they say, well, let's go to Burlington and check out, see what Mary's up to. So they just kind of go into that wormhole, point it in the right direction, and out they pop.
Yeah, visitors. Oh, yeah, visiting, coming through that area.
I'm simplifying it, but basically, I think most people would prefer a simplified answer. Too many people try to get too technical. I know when they get too technical with me, I was just kind of like, can you say it in 10 words or less, please?
So these wormholes would be, they're not made by ET. They're not artificially. They're naturally occurring. Is that what I'm gathering?
Well, the ancient Toltecs they actually had the knowledge. See, we could do it if we still had that knowledge, but our knowledge has been lost on how it's been done. But the ancient Toltecs, the precursors of these were the mound builders, the people, the ancient race in Burlington. They who the Indians called the Hokkaidash, but they were actually Toltec, and they still had the knowledge of how to create these portals. And the reason I found out about it is because Brad was up in the woods mushroom hunting one time, and he took a picture down the lane, and when he came back, that picture, he showed me his camera, and I'm looking through it, and you've seen this huge egg-like energy form, like right in the middle. I mean, it was huge. It was like, I don't know, probably about 15 foot high, maybe 12 foot wide. But so it looked like in the form of an egg. But the strange part about it was it actually had a face on it. I mean, just as clear as could be. And Brad's got the picture. And so anyhow, I started checking it out and found out what they're called is signature face portals. The Toltecs had the ability to create these type of portals where they could be able to time travel and go into the various dimensions. And wouldn't you know, somebody's trying to call me. Hold on, just let me get rid of them. So anyhow, going back to the story, but these were personal portals designed for their own vibration. So what they would do is they would do an energy imprint of their face and imprint it onto the doorway of the portal. So as the other wizards or shamans came along, they would recognize who that belonged to and stay away from it. And I thought that I was the only one that ever had a picture of one of these signature face portals until somebody came in and I was bragging to them about it. And they said, there's a monk in Tibet in the monastery that has the same picture as you do, but with a different face. So the only one I know of besides myself that has one of these pictures is a monk in Tibet living in the monastery.
Oh, wow.
But that is a portal. And so, yeah, we did have the capability of making these portals, and the knowledge has pretty much been lost. But the knowledge is coming back. Now, myself, I can create a portal. I've done it several different times. Actually, the Haunted Cellar, the Sci-Fi Cafe, I actually created a portal down in the basement because I cheated because it was getting too cold to go out in the woods and see all this fantastic stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided, well, since we got everybody coming to the Sci-Fi Cafe and everybody's going down into the Haunted Cellar, why don't I just create a portal so that these entities can come in and out? Which I did, and it worked perfectly. And as far as I know, the portal's still there today. I didn't close it up.
Yikes.
It's not that difficult to do once you learn how.
Okay.
By going into these portals, Mary, you can come back. I mean, it's not a one-way ticket, is it? Obviously not.
That's why.
It could be.
Yes, it could easily be a one-way ticket. That is why that's why certain people are given the knowledge of how to use them, and we don't really share too much of that knowledge of how to make them because of the fact that, if they mess up, they ain't coming back home.
Well, and the reason why I asked that, I mean, using the example, hey, I'm out mushroom hunting, and I do that, and I stumble into one of these portals, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. That means, I'm one of these missing persons, right? I mean,
this is where your story comes of the missing 411, because there's a lot of those people that are going up into these areas, and they step in those portals, and they're gone. And what dimension they land in is anybody's guess. A shaman friend told me though, and this is what I've always done with my people. I tell them to follow me. Stay, don't go off wandering. Always stay with me and stay tight. And now, if you go into a portal, you always make sure, because some of those are like alternate realities, and they look exactly like where you are. Maybe there's one in our world, there's one tree, and in their world there's two trees. Just very, very slight, differences that you wouldn't even notice. And so this shaman friend of mine says, whenever you go into a place, you always make sure that when you come out the exact same way.
Makes sense.
And so because that, we've never had any problems. But I always have him on call in case something like that happens, because he has the ability to go into these type of portals and find people that are missing.
Huh. Wow.
I mean, I got very lucky in finding him, but he knows what he's doing. He lives in New Mexico, but he's only a phone call away. So
right.
And these portals can appear all over the planet, right? I mean, they're not just.
They're all over the planet. They're, if you like a vortex, if you wanted to know what a vortex looked like, these in water, you'll see those little swirls in the water, those little round swirls. That's what a vortex looks like, if you could see it.
Okay.
And they can be very small or they can be very big. And they only appear in these sacred site areas. I mean, they're not just any place. The energies have to be right. These ley lines have to be crossing, and creating this phenomena. And I learned the trick of how to find these sacred sites, because it was easy. I cheated again. I always cheat, right? Why make things difficult? So what I did is I learned that the ancient ones knew where these certain these energy points were. So they would always build their temples there. Their temples, their pyramids, and things like that. They not only did they use them to live in and do ceremony in, but they used them as marker points to show where these places of power were. So then when the Europeans came along, they destroyed most of these temples and that, but they built churches on them. And, and national parks would come along. They would put these, they would claim the land for the government, put up, and have them set up as national parks. Or they'll take government buildings and set on top of them. So So anyhow, that's what I do is I look for things that look like a hill. I look for churches. Catholic churches are great for putting their cathedrals and that on these PowerPoints. So that's how I do it. But then also I can feel it. You know, I'm good enough. Well, I've been doing it for so long. I can be walking along and I can just automatically feel the change in the energy. So.
Oh, wow.
And Burlington.
Well, hey, Marilyn, hold on a second. Why do you think the Catholic Church? I mean,
because they knew the secret.
Ah, okay.
Okay, sure.
Okay. And so it's probably safe to say that they still know the secret.
They still do.
Interesting.
So, like Holy Hill, there's a reason that great big old cathedral is sitting on top of that hill. And
Right.
you've had a lot of Bigfoot sightings and Dogman sightings around that area. Because wherever you have these PowerPoints like that, you'll find these weird things like Bigfoot and Dogman and Bearman and Mothman, and they're always haunted. And you have missing time, strange lights, mist coming out of nowhere.
Well, Mary,
So-
let's take our last break, and when we come back with Mary Sutherland, we're going to talk about the history of Burlington and the issue that has been created by nature, but with man not doing some cool things. But we'll be right back. Welcome back to Pang Radio. Tonight we have on our friend and author, researcher, Mary Sutherland. We're talking about some pretty neat stuff: portals, Bigfoot, Dogman, UFOs, and we're going to get into another thing tonight. So Burlington is known for its UFOs, the former Sci-Fi Cafe, but it's also got a lot of ancient burial mounds around the area too. Mary, is that correct?
Say that one more time, please.
You guys, you have a lot of ancient burial mounds around Burlington too, correct? Did we lose her?
Yeah, I haven't got her.
Yeah, we might have lost Mary there. 1 second. Hey, stand by, everybody.
I hate that, but
We got you back. We got you back. Go ahead. I can edit everything so nothing ever happened.
For a minute there, I thought you stepped into a portal.
Well, it's okay by me. I'm just letting your listeners know it's Wisconsinite slang.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Brad and I were sitting out on the deck tonight and trying to create like a map in our mind of all the things that we've worked on, we've discovered, such as pyramids, temples, a Serpent Ridge, which is it's bigger than the Serpent Mounds of Ohio, or the Ohio Serpent Mounds.
Mm-hmm.
Discoveries of skeletal remains reported, documented. And so we're trying to create this map of where we found them, what the stories that we had heard about them, and various maps that we found, and came to the conclusion that Burlington at one time, it had to be an ancient city of at least 5-mile radius.
Wow.
That's huge. An ancient city.
That's Los Angeles.
Yeah. So I'm talking radius, north, south, east, west, based on findings that we've found, documentations of what other people have found, mounds, everything. Because they're not spaced, like a mile from one place is another spot that they found something. It's like, it's all runs together. From like the Haunted Woods, Dead Man's Hill, to the flat top step pyramids or ziggurat, all the way up to the Panther Mounds, 2 miles outside of Burlington. And all in between, they have discovered skeletal remains and mounds. So that's as big as Cahokia, if not bigger. And we know that there was a documentary done on television one time because people couldn't find any dinosaur bones in Chicago. They couldn't figure this out, right? And so this documentary, they created this map going back to that time period to see that the water was much higher during the time of the dinosaur. And so Chicago was covered by water. And guess who had the seaport? The coastline ran right up to Burlington.
Ah, makes sense.
So this was a major seaport.
Wow.
So they were importing and exporting. And we know for sure it had to been at least 5 miles square radius. And the thing is, nobody knows anything about Burlington, Wisconsin, and this hidden city. They refused to talk about when I first came to Burlington, because I was a researcher of this stuff way before Burlington in Arizona. So I recognized a lot of these mounds for what they were. I went to all these different places, the Historical Society, the Chamber of Commerce, to the police, to the library. I says, tell me about your mounds. We don't have mounds. I fought for years with the Chamber of Commerce just to put on their front page that there was Indians in this area. When I first came here, they even refused to acknowledge that the Indians lived in the where Burlington sits right now.
Wow.
Well, Marilyn, I think the Smithsonian Institute has a bunch of data that they've got squirreled away in a basement.
Yes.
Concerning you said Cahokia. I've been to Cahokia, Illinois, and there's documentation that they found skeleton remains of 7 to 8 foot people or creatures, and the Smithsonian put a clamp on it.
Yes, but guess what I found? Straight from the Smithsonian. I have maps that they did up in the 1800s, maybe it was early 1900s. They had Lapham go out and document all these mounds for them. And I found the maps of the Smithsonian showing these ancient mounds with the title Burlington, Wisconsin, written right on it, showing where the river was, how the mounds were all laid out, So these people, they'll tell me, well, you don't have any proof that these ancient people lived here. I says, I think the Smithsonian, my map that I have from the Smithsonian is proof of it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And I have it right on my website. About 8 years back, right where these mounds were alongside the river there, the town decided to beautify their town and create a river walk. And they started knocking down, they came in with a bulldozer and they started knocking down all these mounds.
Oh.
And I tried to stop them. I begged them not to. And so anyhow, they did it anyhow. I contacted the Indians on it too, because I thought, well, I can get support from them. And they refused to help me, saying that since the mounds weren't on the Indian reservation, they couldn't help me at all. And then I contacted the State Archaeological Department in Madison and tried to stop it that way. And they said, oh, no, there's no evidence whatsoever that the mound builders was in the Burlington area. And I said, I have documentation and I have maps to prove it. And it was a woman at that time that was head of the department down there in Madison. She said, well, send them to me and we'll get back to you on it. So I spent a day or so putting all this documentation together, and I sent it to her. I never heard back from her one time. So, the only thing I could do at that time, because people really didn't know me that well, and, I wasn't, known for my research as I am today. So anyhow, I had to kind of step back and watch this happen. But I did go down prior to the destruction, and I took pictures of these mounds, and I took pictures of the bulldozers and all that, and then I took pictures of the finished product, because I wanted, at least, if nothing else, is to have photo documentation of these ancient mounds that were in Burlington, or some of them. And so anyhow, we do have that. And now they're doing it again.
Oh.
And this is why I was on Heidi Hollis' show. When was that? Friday night?
Friday night,
you were
yep.
hosting. And so you asked me to be on the show and inform people that this is going on again in Burlington. I found out, well, there was a newspaper, and if people join my group, the easiest way to do this is if you go to my group, my Facebook group, which I will put in, I'll put the URL in your chat room, and join that. Then people can see the newspaper, and they can see the laws protecting these mounds. They can see what I'm doing and what I am going to be doing, and we're going to try to get this stopped. Even if I have to go to the point of, if they put that aquatic center in, if I have to, I'll try to get it tore up and get those skeletal remains out of there and give them the proper burial.
Right.
But I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself, because people are saying, what are you talking about? So what had just recently happened is there was some construction work being done on this side street in Burlington. They were redoing the road there. So they had it pretty well dug up, and they were going to be working on sewers and things like that right there. So then we had that 500-year flood, which I told Brad then. I says, hey, you know what? You watch, because as hard as that flood is flowing through here, I says, there's going to be artifacts popping up. And so sure enough, when the rains were done and the construction crew was ready to go back to work, they're floating on that street was all these skeletal remains. So because so many people had seen it, they had to contact the State Historical Society. Now, according to law, the State Historical Society has 30 days to determine, to be able to go in there, study, collect, research, and then determine if it's a sacred site or not. And if they determine that it is historical or prehistorical, they can shut it down and protect it. So they went in there, and Burlington only gave them 10 days to be there. And then after 10 days, they told them that they had to leave and not come back.
Who runs this town?
And
wow.
For some reason, instead of having the archaeological department have any guts, they left and just signed the papers giving them okay to continue.
Ugh.
Even though in the newspaper, it was written and quoted by the State Historical Society and the administrator of Burlington that these were not Native American, but prehistoric skeletal remains.
Wow.
that gives me my proof that I needed to show that Burlington is sitting on an ancient city, of these mound builders.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so now we've got the skeletal remains just sitting there, and the cover up begins, because the city was also putting together a aquatic center in town. So to save money, and I think it was either $65,000 or $97,000 for bringing in fill to for the foundation of the aquatic center, they came up with this brilliant idea that what they were going to do is just scoop up all these prehistoric bones, skeletal remains, and use them as fill to put in the foundation for their aquatic center. Not only is that illegal, but it's disrespectful of our ancestors. Mm-hmm. And besides that, if this was done properly, this could be the greatest discovery in modern times of an ancient site in North America.
Right.
I mean, this should be told. I mean, instead of them covering it up, like, for example, Serpent Mounds, they make $1 million at least a year of tourism coming into to just be on that site where the Serpent Mound is. Now imagine if you had a prehistoric city and you allowed the archaeologists to come in and collect the artifacts and the skeletal remains and create like a huge museum. I know that we can't, the city sits on the land, okay, so we can't undo that, but we can take what we found and create a huge visitor center or museum.
Oh, right.
And allow people to come in and learn about these ancient people and to see on display all the different artifacts that have been found and uncovered. And the city, I mean, compare how much money they're making in swimming lessons versus how much money, if they had any sense,
right,
they could be making just allowing us to bring back the real history of Burlington and these well, the Indians called them the Hokadesh and described them as white race, red-haired giants. And that's why I started my book. My first book came out as the Red-Haired Giants. And we have more, because I went and, I had it for tonight, but we got talking about other things. But I'll put it on in my Facebook group so people can read it. But there was, up until 1890, something like that, we had Wisconsin State Archaeological Society, something like that, with Perkins as president. And right up to that point in time, they were out there and they were collecting all the remnants they could find of these ancient people that they called the copper race, because they were part of the people up there in Michigan. They were bringing the Michigan copper down here into Burlington, and they had foundries set up, and they were actually they actually have proof that they were casting copper. The Indians only use copper for decoration, but what separates the copper from Michigan is because Michigan is decorative copper. Mm-hmm. But here in Burlington, you could see it was actually manufactured. It was casted. The utilities were casted. Axes and screws, nails, and different types of equipment. And this was the first time that any archaeologist, including the Smithsonian, even knew that there was a people out there that was actually casting using furnaces for smelting copper and or creating bronze. Okay, and this was all through the. There was one man responsible for it, and his name was his last name was Perkins, and he lived in Burlington, and he used to go around with a horse and wagon, and he would go to all these farms, that plowed up the fields, and he paid them like a penny or something like that for every artifact that they found. And he had thousands upon thousands of these artifacts. And prior to his death, he donated them to the Smithsonian, to the Beloit College, to Milwaukee, or not Beloit College, but Beloit Museum, to the Madison Museum, Milwaukee Museum. But up until that point in time, all those museums, they only had maybe 3 or 4 pieces. So nobody, they were like ooplas. Nobody knew what they were for or who did them, so they didn't pay any attention to them until Perkins donated all these thousands upon thousands of pieces. And at that point in time, they realized that there was a copper culture here in Burlington, Wisconsin, or in Wisconsin. Up until that point in time, nobody even knew about this race of people. It was a lost race, totally forgotten. And it was through the efforts of one of the founding people of Burlington that they regained their memory of these people. And now here it is, Burlington again coming into news as destroying all the work that the Wisconsin State Historical Society and Perkins did, to bring back all this knowledge. And they said that this bringing back the copper culture is like bringing back the Alps in Switzerland, or the Great Pyramids, of Egypt. People from around the world, tourists from all around the world would come to North America just to see and learn about this ancient race that North America had. And that was up until like 1890s, something like that they were even going to build these huge museums, storage areas that they could keep all this material or all these artifacts in and information about this race. Smithsonian tried contacting them and asking them to give it all to them, and they refused because they wanted this as Wisconsin's treasure, something that Wisconsin could be proud of. But something happened right after that. In the late 1800s, like a little bit past 1890s, or maybe even the first part of the 1900s, that all this information was picked up, gathered up, and totally lost. And now everything that is found on this copper culture is taken from the view of the people. And we don't know why. But and we even have the Mormons, finding the brass plates right outside of Burlington that describes these same people.
Huh.
And they referred to them as more of a Brahmin culture. Like Abraham, Brahmin.
Oh, sure.
So, this is our national treasure, something that we alone stand to be proud of. And it's being destroyed right in front of our very eyes. Can you imagine these dump trucks coming in and loading up skeletons and then dumping them as fill into a swimming pool?
Yeah.
So this has been, I learned about this about 4 days ago, and Heidi Hollis found out about it. Then you were co-hosting the show, and you heard about the dilemma.
Yep.
And you've been supporting me on it, as well as Heidi and a few other people. And I'm writing a cover letter right now, and I'm going to be sending it out to the press, to all the media. I'm going to the state archaeological department. I'm not who I was the first time they decided to destroy all this stuff. I've got a little bit more power under my belt, and I'm going to use my name, my credibility, and whatever means possible to try to bring back this history and save it as a national treasure.
You're a true warrior for doing that. Yep, you're a true warrior for doing that. Now, I want to tell our listeners the name of your Facebook group too. They could probably put that in a search bar.
In right now.
There you go. And I will put that up on our Inception Radio Network Facebook page too. So look for Mary's Facebook group. I will post that right after the show.
People ask. There was a few people that asked me. They says, "Well, how much money do you need to make off this in order to do this project?" And I said, "I don't want no money.
Oh, boy.
I'm not into it for the money."
Oh.
And anybody that knows me knows that I don't do anything for the money. I do it because it's right.
Right. So, correct. Oh, yeah. They'll throw that in chat, Mary. And anything else going on quick? We got about a minute and a half.
A minute and a half.
Minute and a half, yep.
Let's see. What does the guest in chat room have something they want to ask or
I think
questions?
I think they're all pretty good. You covered the portals pretty darn well for them. Now,
absolutely.
Now,
how about this? I still do the tours, and I'll put that in as well as my link. I still do the tours, and now instead of being on Saturday night, you schedule them around your time. And then you contact me, and we figure out how many people, what date you want to go, and then we just go with it there.
Oh, cool.
And then also, I think I put in you can find all my books on Amazon or Barnes and Noble, the local bookstores, libraries, wherever. But the best place to go is on my website, because on my website, when you purchase it there, I sign it for you.
Perfect. And let them know where your website is too, Mary.
Okay, I'll do that too.
Go ahead and tell our listeners too. Go ahead and shout it out to the listeners too. The Burlington.
Okay, it's Burlington News. Okay, burlingtonnews.net/books is where they can find all my books. And I use my books to make my money to support what I do out here. And they're good books. I base all. It's not books that you're going to find this information on the internet. I use hard to find books and lost books, written in the 1800s and even before, and local legends and that. Things that you can't find out there, you can find in my books.
Perfect, Mary. Perfect. Thanks for coming on and bringing this to the attention of all our listeners. This worldwide, which is what we wanted to do.
The listeners yes, we're going worldwide with this. We're not going to back down on this. And for the listeners, you can help. I don't need money, but you can help by having me on your shows. You can have me or pass this information around to as many people as you can, because that's where it works, is when we can get people together. It's the squeaky wheel that gets oiled, and let's get out there and squeak. Don't let them take our history from us. It's just way too important.
Perfect. Well,
fascinating show.
Yes, thank you for coming on, Mary. It was awesome, and we will talk to you soon.
Well, thank you for having me on, and thank you for supporting our ancient race.
Yes, it's going right on the Facebook.
Appreciate it as well.
Right, going right on our Facebook page.
Good things, when you do things, good things come back to you, and I'm sure that you'll be rewarded for this.
Well, thank you, Mary, and I'll be in touch in a few days with you too. So I'll touch base with you.
Okay, great. Okay. I'm looking forward to it.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you all you listeners for help that you're going to be giving me and just listening to me tonight.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Fascinating show.
That was fun, Ken. So
Yeah, man, I tell you, she's a fireball.
Yes, she's a fireball, and be sure you support Mary's cause to see ancient history stay with us versus getting dumped into a new construction project. So on our Facebook page, I will put Mary's group on there so you can follow her plight to do good for ancient civilizations that should still be here.
Beat the hell out of finding out what happened to the Kardashians. Somebody in chat put that up there, and I had to chuckle.
and this was much more fun than Game of Thrones. I can't get into that. Sorry.
Nah, me neither. But that was good. It was a good show, man. I enjoyed it very much.
Well, to be sure you catch us next week at 9 p.m. Eastern when the Brain Trust comes together and we talk about John Ford and his plight to get out of his shitty little prison. Excuse my language, but we'll be here next week with our Brain Trust. And Ken, great show. Thanks for coming on.